Hey, what's up, comic book collectors? It's Christopher, aka the Bronze Age Nerd. I'm a comic book collector who loves to play devil's advocate, so let's get ready to stop the FOMO and go over my list of the top 5 worst comic book investments right now, in my opinion. Oi, listen up, it's time for the number 5 pick on the list. That's right, we're gonna go with The Boys. Excellent show. This comic book is a very popular comic book for boys collectors because it's Herogasm #1. It's the first appearance of Soldier Boy, and I think almost equally as important, it's also Herogasm, which is something that collectors had built up in their minds for a long time. Minor spoilers for the, I think episode 5 of The Boys, I want to say, or the episode that featured Herogasm. Let's just say it was a bit of a letdown. It wasn't really as exciting as I think most people hoped. It was interesting for sure, and I know it got some people talking, but also it happened. It's over. There's no future Herogasm coming in the show, at least from what it seems like. So at this point, where is this book really going to go? We've had Soldier Boy in a few episodes now. I haven't watched the most recent one that takes place after Herogasm, but I mean, he's an interesting character, but I just don't think that we're going to see much going forward. Usually after the character debuts, that's when we start to see a drop off in the first appearance, and I think that's going to be true for this book as well. So I'd avoid Herogasm #1. Next up on the list at number 4, we have Spectacular Spider-Man Annual 14. This is the first appearance of Tamara Blake. The reason that this becomes important is there is this Iron Cat storyline taking place, and this is the first appearance of the character who becomes Iron Cat. So this is one of those books that I think if you can find it at COVRPRICE, or if you can find it in your collection, you're fine. There's no reason to panic over owning this book, but I wouldn't necessarily seek it out. Now, the big reason why is because this is the first appearance of the actual real secret identity person, not the costumed individual. And time again, we see that usually the costumed individual is where we see the most profit when it comes to investing in the comic book or speculating on the comic book. Now, there are some exceptions, especially when you're talking about characters like from, say, the Silver Age or older, who then later become a hero in the very recent modern age. Peggy Carter might be a good example of that. Yeah, there are some examples where you do see this happen, but I don't think it's going to happen with this character. Also, I don't think this character is going to become amazingly popular, and maybe I'll be wrong about that, but I think it's a fairly safe bet. I think it's kind of a in the moment kind of a thing. I'd rather pick up the first appearances of Iron Cat as the character, right? So that's what I'd be focusing on, and even then I'm not going to focus too much money on it. All right, at number 3 on the list, we're going to focus on a ratio. This is Hulk versus Banner War Alpha, second print, 1 in 25. Yeah, it's going to be an obscure book. Not a lot of people have it. CBSI reported this book, I think probably based on just value over ratio, essentially. That's my guess anyway, but I don't think anybody's going to care about this book later on. I think it's kind of one of those ones you can easily find for ratio in a year would be my guess. And to be fair, they pretty much point that out in the article. I think Ben does the write-ups on those. It seems like that's pretty much what he's hinting at, is that this is probably just a consequence of being a low-ordered book and a copy that is going to be hard to find. And if you have belief in those types of books, I understand that. But again, why not buy this later on down the road when it's closer to a reasonable price? Okay, number 2 on the list, we're going to talk about Marvel Comics Presents 158. This is the first appearance of Clandestine, I don't really know how you're supposed to say it as far as the team name goes. Essentially, this is something that's, from what I can tell, it's coming out of Miss Marvel, because we do have a group of characters that refer to themselves as that in the show. Not being super familiar with the comic book characters, this seems to be a different interpretation of that team and what's going on. Again, these characters are already on the screen, so this kind of is a little bit like Herogasm. Where's the future benefit here for people that collect based on spec? We've already seen the characters. This was a nothing burger before we ever saw these characters on screen, and I think it's going to return to that pretty quickly. All right, number 1 on my list is What If Miles Morales #4, and this book is on a lot of people's radar because of some controversy. It basically, the writer apologized for this most recently, which, by the way, I think the editorial staff should have been the one apologizing, but we're not really going to talk about the controversy behind this issue too much. If you're not familiar, essentially there's some potentially racist portrayals of Miles Morales as Thor in this book. I tend to agree with that assessment of things from what I've seen. There's some references and some art depictions that seem a little off to me. But hey, you know what? More importantly, it's why is this book not a good investment? And I'm going to come back to controversial issues rarely hold significant value long term. I think this book is always going to be more than cover price because it is something that people are going to take a they're going to take a notice to. They're going to remember this issue. It's going to be somewhat memorable like that. But let's look at some of the other key issues that have come out that have been controversial. All-Star Batman, I think it was number 10, where some of the words weren't blurred out and Batgirl was cussing. That was like a recalled issue. People thought it was controversial. I mean, good luck getting a lot of money for that book now. X-Men Gold number 1, where there was some questionable artwork that got inserted in by one of the artists. I think that was recalled as well. Again, it's not a valuable comic book. Immortal Hulk. Immortal Hulk had a controversial issue with some anti-Semitic depictions in it. That issue was recalled, and they weren't going to digitally print it in the same way ever again. Again, that issue is not worth very much money. So what makes this any different? We also saw this recently with one of the Savage Avengers books that had a depiction of Pocahontas that was a little off. And again, these books just don't hold value. They're always going to be a little bit more than the issues around them in the run. So you're definitely going to see this, maybe for $1 or $2 more in a few years, but is that worth buying it now and holding on to it at an inflated price? No. All right, I hope you enjoyed my top 5 not to buy for this week. It's also can be considered a top 5 books I wouldn't invest in. However you want to look at it. Essentially, it's just my least favorite picks from all the hot lists that come out. And I think that this week definitely is a good showcase for why some books should be avoided. If you want to discuss all the comic books I talked about in this video, go ahead and leave a comment down below, or you can head over to my Discord or my Instagram and we can discuss some of these picks a little bit further over there. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Until then, I want to remind you, as always, hey, 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 hey. Read comics every day.